Welcome to the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. Today we're talking about a secret trend that's going on that most mainstream media, most social media is not talking about. Not only are they not talking about it, they refuse to even acknowledge that it's going on. And that is these various men's movements. Whatever form they take, they are exploding, taking off, going like gangbusters. There are things now that are now so common that people are making money off of it that did not exist 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago. We have a men's rights movement that didn't exist before. And apparently it's become so egregious that men's rights have been quashed, stepped upon, that they have an entire group, lobbyists, everything that you can name, men's rights. Then you have the men going their own way movement, and this is the giant that's sleeping, or the sleeping giant as they would call it. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge the numbers, but as you go around the internet, you see that talk of it is everywhere. And again, social media is not only not talking about it, but they're trying to quash and silence the movement, which is, it doesn't seem controversial at all. That men are talking about that they're going to go do whatever by themselves, which literally means they're going to leave other people alone, which is exactly what most people from other groups have asked for. Then you have the return to masculinity genre, which is a booming industry. That is men teaching other men, teaching younger men about beard grooming. There's an entire whole new thing of the return of the beard and facial hair for men. Whole new genre of men taking care of their bodies. That is either working out or actually bodybuilding. You have 60 to 80-year-old men now having their own division of bodybuilding competitions. You have to have so many men doing that to actually generate interest in not only people organizing the competition, but advertisers getting behind the competition to sponsor the competition, because that's how that works. You have to have advertisers, and there has to be enough people in it for the advertiser to get behind it. And so that's booming too. That's all a part of the return to masculinity. Then you have whole websites, whole blog sites strictly dedicated to a return to masculinity, teaching younger men how to be masculine. Since there is an epidemic of women raising boys, which that should not be. Any sociologist will tell you that a woman should not be raising a boy. A woman can nurse an infant, and that should be the extent of a woman's involvement with a boy. After that, he belongs to the father. And this is the tradition going back thousands and thousands of years, of course. Hundreds of thousands of years, actually. We also have a new trend of millennial men not dating, nor even fooling around with women. Millennial men, they've done survey after survey, and the news has reported on this trend, that there is a general lack of fooling around. So what are the millennial men doing? They are minding their own business, playing video games, which is entertainment, sticking to themselves, sticking with each other, hanging out with the homies, right? There's also all sorts of colloquialisms, bros before hoes, meaning that you stick with your friends, your group of guys, before being distracted by women. And that's a bro terminology, meaning men in college. So that age, 18 to 25. So if that's in the 18 to 25 terminology, you know that it is a common thing in that age group. And there's no amount of women getting upset because women have the same exact colloquialism in their own little sect. You have the tax base shrinking in cities as men go off the grid financially. Now, I'm not talking about the big, huge, dramatic purposeful going off the grid. I'm talking about that men can go off the grid financially, and it is such a big deal, and nobody's talking about it. Again, the whole premise of this entire video is nobody is talking about it. Men go off the grid financially, working under the table. Some have a dramatic consciously leaving the grid and leaving the grind of working 9 to 5. Then you have a sporadic gig work, talking about this is the new gig economy there. And for millennials, that is a big term. You have a lot of magazines talking about that, a lot of newspapers talking about that this is the gig economy, meaning you have one gig at a time. But the problem there is it's sporadic. You have one job, you complete the job, and you're done. You're done working. The gig is over. And because of this, a lot of times you're paid under the table. They don't report to tax agencies, or it's something that you do out of a specialty that you have. Let's say it's computer programming, graphic design, whatever it is. And it's done by word of mouth, and you just sort of live paycheck to paycheck. And in this case, sometimes the paycheck is in cash because it's just a simple task that you have to complete. And this reduction in tax base leaves women and millennials holding the tab as men are dropping off. Now, of course, this means that the older men are completely dropping off because older men, of course, are wise and they see what's going on and they say, okay, I don't want this. And they just leave. And some of them can afford to just leave. When you get 50, 60 years old, you could just pick up and leave. And also, you have a different sensibility of what's important to you. Where everybody else is talking about, oh, I could never leave. I love this company. Oh, I could never leave. I love this city. Older men are very realistic and pragmatic. They sit down and think about it. Nope, don't like this company. Don't like this boss. Don't like this job. This is a dead-end job. I'm getting nowhere. I'm not even saving for retirement. I have to do retirement on my own. Currently, we have a labor force that is now 60% women. You can look that up yourself. After the women's movement was hijacked, kicking out married and mothers. Do you all know that? That the women's movement originally actually catered to married and mothers. Married women and mothers catered to it. The family was the key. And making a married woman or a mother's life better for her was the key. That movement was completely and unceremoniously hijacked, and they literally kicked out all of the people talking about married women and mothers. And then they started concentrating on single women to work for the corporations, removing men out of the workforce. That was a conscious decision that they actually made. So now you have a workforce, a labor force that is 60% women. As much as they talk about financials and women aren't making enough money and they're not in key positions, blah, 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 the labor force is 60% women. They have a solid command of the majority of the labor force itself, which means millennial men are not working. And then you have the rise of the millennial men not working at all and dropping off of unemployment rosters completely. You know that when they do the reports about unemployment, they stop reporting on people who are no longer looking for a job and have given up hope of ever finding a job. Those people are completely taken off of the rosters. Guess who the majority of those people are? Millennial men. That's not to say that millennial men don't want to work. It's that they can't work for whatever reason. And chief among them is that they don't have the skill set to do it. And there is a huge sector of the population hiring employers who are requiring extensive skill sets in engineering, in computers, and Americans simply do not have it. There are millions of job openings for those sectors, and Americans simply do not have the skill set. I already did a video talking about a woman saying she will pay you $500,000 for a job, but you can't do the job. Why? Because nobody has a skill set. She came right out and said that I will pay you $500,000 to do the job, but you don't have the skill set. You don't have the training, you don't have the education, and you don't have the experience. Why? Because I know all the people with the experience. And they're all taken. You also have the rise of the millennial men not working and dropping off of the unemployment rosters, playing video games, or even couch surfing, meaning that they're homeless. That's the new way to be homeless, is you go from couch to couch. Whether it's intentionally and you have friends and you just rotate around amongst your friends, or unintentionally, where you go play video games with a person and play until it's wee hours in the morning and the person says, hey, why don't you stay, spend the night? You can sleep on the couch. And you say, oh, that's very nice of you. And a week later they say, hey, dude, I said you could stay one day. You've stayed here a week. Please leave. And then you go repeat that with the other friend that you were playing video games with. And same thing. That's the unintentional couch surfing. Unintentional on the part of the people with the couch. Men are not in college. College is now 60% women. College was 51% women in 1970. So women have had a commanding lead over college attendance for the longest time. For all of millennials' lives, women have been a majority in college. All of the millennials' lives. Now, women are so upset that they don't have dateable college-educated men. Well, in these last few years, especially during the last Obama administration, they made it a point to absolutely make sure that they did every possible nefarious, underhanded thing to get men out of college. To the point of saying all sorts of very nasty things about men in college. Liberal arts is 90% women. You simply have the STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, math, that you have men dominating some of the subject matter. Biology is dominated by women. Chemistry is dominated by women. Did you know that? So this whole push to get women into STEM is wrong-headed, and of course they keep telling you something that is not true. That women can't get into STEM and when you need scholarships and you need to donate to encourage women to get into STEM. Women dominate chemistry. Women dominate biology because they want to be marine biologists. They want to be veterinarians. There you go. But they are now upset that they can't date a college-educated man. Well, you did that to yourselves. How are you going to have women be 60% of the college attendees and then say that you can't find a date with a man with adequate college level education? Men have retreated so far from society that the SJW movement have to make up stuff to be angry about now. And their numbers are steadily dwindling as that population ages, meaning gets older, meaning gets wiser, and suddenly realizes they're wrong about a great many things. Now, during this period, men's happiness is steadily increasing, not decreasing, as they distance themselves from women. And it seems that on all of the key points that all the surveys are talking about or asking men, they said they don't have to deal with a nagging wife because they've done medical research on that and have said that a nagging wife actually reduces your life expectancy. You live longer with a nagging wife than without one. At all. You know, the idea would be, oh, well, you could teach the woman not to nag and so you have a very pleasant wife. Well, that would seem to be the case, but it seems that without the wife at all, there's actually more life expectancy out of the man. Also, one of the key points in the survey talking about men's happiness going up is actually working on the job. So those men who do have jobs are actually working more and finding it less stressful as society actually starts getting separated from each other. So you have women separating themselves into women-only companies. Okay, that's fine. That means that there's less women in the men companies, right? The men, by definition, then have to form. Because if you have women separating themselves from men, then you have male-only companies forming. Women's happiness is steadily decreasing. And why is this? Because they're being forced to work longer hours. And when I say forced to, that means by definition. It doesn't mean somebody's forcing them to work longer hours. It's by definition. Why is that? Because she has to pay for everything herself. Because she has to pay for everything herself, that means she has to cover her mortgage or rent, her bills, her expenses, her car insurance, her health insurance. She has to pay all of that herself now. Because of that, she has to work full time. And even in this day and age where they tell women that this is available to you, now you can go work. For the most part, the majority of women in the working force, in the labor force, still only work 30 hours a week. They are so concentrating on this that they still only work 30 hours a week because they want to have time to be with their single children. Not single children, but being a single mom, right? Because that's important to them. Well, also, that gives them unhappiness. Working the long hours increases their unhappiness. Also, they're slowly getting into dangerous jobs because they need the money. Dangerous jobs means that women are increasingly putting themselves at risk. Where the men have already done those jobs and already been at risk, now women are slowly getting into that. Also, women are either not dating, not being quote unquote taken care of, or dating is now strictly Dutch. I mean, she pays for herself and the man pays for himself. It only stands to reason because the original intent of that, which was a brief period of work in human history didn't have work. Like go to a job and work for somebody else. They didn't have that. It didn't exist before. So during this period of working for somebody else for money, women didn't have to do that. So they didn't have any money. So everybody took care of women. That is, the father took care of the woman and the husband took care of the woman financially. With the advent of women getting into the labor force and making their own money and getting their own paycheck, it stands to reason that the woman gets free lunch for everything just for being a woman, of course, goes out the window. And that is also contributing to their unhappiness. Another trend that's going on amongst men is the tiny house explosion. Now, this is something that nobody else talks about. The tiny house explosion shrinks the tax base of a city. Why? Because city regulations say you can't tax a mobile building. So because the building doesn't actually sit on or in the ground permanently, it's not a part of the actual property. So you don't have property tax attached to that particular building. With tiny houses booming, you actually have 90% of them being owned by men. I think it's even more than 90%. I was being conservative in my estimation. Of course, when you go to some sort of magazine or newspaper, they're all going to show you a woman owning a tiny house, but that is ridiculously rare. Why? Because a woman is not suited to be by herself, alone. It's not in her makeup. The woman has always been the group-oriented animal. The men went out and hunt. They might go hunt in a group, but when they got to the site, they would then go out by themselves, and they could sit by themselves for hours, days, weeks, by themselves. So men are very used to being by themselves. It was a benefit to humanity that men had that skill. So tiny houses is not a woman thing. It is a overwhelmingly majority of men thing. Now, some cities have taken to outright banning tiny houses because you can't tax them. And the National Realtors Association, which is a huge association, is doing everything that they possibly can to come against the tiny house boom. And the fact that you don't hear about this speaks volumes about who's in control of what, right? So the National Realtors Association doesn't want to get a bad reputation for saying, get rid of these tiny houses, ban the tiny houses, but we want to ban the tiny houses. And make sure you don't report on that. And currently, the family has never been in more danger than now. As in, there will be no families soon, except for in black communities and legitimate immigrants. And even then, it's specifically African immigrants, because the African immigrants are coming from societies where you had a birth rate of 8. 2.1 birth rate is replacement birth rate. You have the white population of the United States coming in at a cool 1.8 or even 1.6. In some states, it's even worse than that in the white population. Now, of course, a lot of the people are going to report about black people not getting married, but that's actually untrue. Black people get married more so, if you're doing a per capita thing, more so than the white population. Also, black people tend to not divorce anywhere near as much as white people. Black people are so good at that to be second only to Asians as far as staying together and not getting divorced. Now, some of you might have anecdotal evidence saying, well, I get divorced and I'm black. Well, that's just you. Nationally speaking, black divorce rates are really low probably because of the way black people are socializing in the United States. They sort of have this idea that it's me and you, and that's about it. And this whole I'm gonna go here and there and hither and yon is not a black thing, because the blacks tend to stick together. You have a 98% marriage rate of black women to black men, and you have a 92% marriage rate of black men to black women. So it's a pretty homogenous marriage rate amongst black people. That means they don't have any sort of incentive to go wandering. And because of this, they tend to stick together. The average divorce age in the black community, specifically women, and it's 51 years of age. That means for 30 some odd years, black women will stay married to black men, which means for the most part, black people don't get divorced. Again, I repeat, if you yourself are black and you got divorced, that is something that only you experienced. In general, black people don't get divorced. And these are the trends that we're seeing that nobody's talking about. These are secret trends, especially dealing with the men's movements. It's impacting the economy, and because of this, that changes the way society actually works, especially between men and women. And unintentionally, it impacts women. This is why you have women who are upset now pretty much all the time. This is why you have women who are screaming and talking about, why can't I get a man? And then you have women's magazines talking about, where have all the good men gone? And those are anecdotal evidence put forth by the author of that article, because she herself has not found a quote-unquote good man. When you sit down and actually start doing the math, for the most part, 90% of men are good men. Has a job, takes care of themselves, pays his bill, because that's the common thread amongst the normal people. Has no criminal record. That's that goes on with normal people. Normal people in general are pretty docile. They go along, they get along to go along, or they go along to get along. Something, whatever. I'm pulling Joe Biden up here. But 90% of men are good men. Now, are they good for a woman who's looking for something specific that she wants to manipulate? Probably not. Because probably she's not a good woman. She's probably not a good person, and she wants to manipulate somebody and have her cake and eat it too. No longer does she get free dates. No longer does she get free dinners, free movies, free dancing, free club entrance. No longer. Does that mean that the man isn't good? According to women, that means the man isn't good. So the man should go broke Well, first of all, you make more money than he does. You have a job and can get a job and can land a job more often than he does, but you want him to pay. The whole idea of the man paying was that you didn't have any money, zero, and you did not have a possibility of making money. So no, that does not make a bad man. No, that doesn't even make a bad date. Because if you're a millennial, or even worse, Gen Z, men aren't paying for you at all. In fact, there's a shift going on where the woman pays for the man. Because men are in command of the dating pool and the marriage pool. Why? Because it's almost 2-to-1. 2 women per 1 man. That means this whole idea of, the alpha male gets all the women is ridiculous. It's ridiculous on its face. And anybody who says that doesn't know what they're talking about. And the whole women are chasing the top 5% of men. The one who have money, good looks, good body, house, car. No, that is completely wrong. It's wrong on its face. When you look at the data, it's showing that there is an overabundance of women looking for men. First of all, not vice versa. That means that women will lower and lower and lower and lower their standards, quote unquote, which is a ridiculous notion to begin with. Men aren't known for their looks. Men have never been known for their looks. The whole idea that there is a good-looking man is something new and modern. Men were never known for their looks. They were always, and have almost always been, known for what they can provide. How much money do they have? What kind of clothes do they wear? What kind of house do they live in? What section of town do they live? That's the characteristics of a quote-unquote good man, a catch. Those are not the characteristics of a woman at all. A man doesn't date a woman because she has a lot of money. Sorry to say that, but that's the truth. A man dates a woman based on her looks, based on her intelligence, based on her personality. As there's 2-to-1, 2 women per 1 man, that means that all the good guys or the hot guys are going to be taken. Then you go the next step down, then the next step down, then the next step down. Why? Because all of the 10s and the women are taking all the 10s and men. And there's 2 10s per 1 male 10. That means even in the 10s category of women, some of them are going to be dating the 9s, and even then some of them are going to be dating the 8s in the men's category. That means that the 9s are starting out at 7, 6, 5. I can't do math. And that means the 7s in the female categories are going to be looking to date the 5s of men. So by the time you get to the 5s in women, if she's not looking for a 5, 4, 3, or a 2, she's out to lunch. She has a way more self-importance, ego than she should have, because she just it's an impossibility. Unless you just find some sort of diamond in the rough of some guy who's a 10 who just doesn't hang out, and then you caught him on the one night that he went out for cigarettes, and there you have it. But that's the luck of the draw. That's not categorically. All right, thank you all for watching. I hope this has been informative, and please look this up. If you are online already, you can look all of this stuff up yourself. Just rewind the video, see what I said, and you can literally type it into the search engine to find out my sources. Do not ask for my sources. You don't ask CNN for their sources, and I tell you CNN lies. I tell you point blank, CNN lies to you. I am an actually investigative reporter and a researcher. I was paid to research. Paid. Write reports. I'm published. Not only am I published, but my work actually led to some laws being written based on my work. So yeah, I'm not here to do the research for you. Thank you all for watching. Please donate to the channel. I am really behind by something like $400. I'm not going to be evicted because I called my landlord and they agreed to not evict me because I'm one of the few people who have been paying unbroken for 3 years here. They don't really have a problem out of me. So I have to pay, but he's not going to come and evict me like tomorrow or nothing like that. Thank y'all for watching, and thank for all the people who did donate. All of my accounts are still frozen though, so I'm literally not eating. I lost 15 pounds. I just went to the doctor. I lost 15 pounds. The nurse actually freaked out, which is not good for a guy with high blood pressure for the nurse to freak out. But I thought it was a good thing. I thought I should lose weight, but I lost weight unintentionally by not eating. So she was freaking out and she was like, were you trying to lose weight? Or is there something wrong with you? Which she didn't say that part. She just kept saying, are you trying to lose weight? Thank you all for watching. Pray for me if you're a prayerful person. Wish me well if you're a wishful person. Thank you all.